Blueville podcast. Andrew Rosenbaum here today with Katie Reniker. Katie was hired in 2017 as the assistant garden store manager, working with Derek DeBoer when he was still up at the garden store before he moved to sales. When Derek moved to sales in 2019/2020, Katie moved into the head garden store manager. She's going to talk about things that are going on up at the garden store in the spring and what you can look for when you come in working on your spring landscape projects.
Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about early spring at the garden store. Right now we're still going through winter projects, getting the store ready for the early months of spring, but we do have a few things arriving at the store that people typically look for in the early months in March. So right now, seed potatoes have arrived. We just got our second shipment yesterday, so we'll be getting the rest of them set up this week. As far as varieties, we'll carry Yukon Gold is a yellow one, Kennebec is a white one, Red Norland and Red Lesotho are both red varieties. Those are very common varieties that people typically look for with seed potatoes. And then the ones that just showed up that we'll add to what we have on the sales floor are Dakota Pearl. Those are a white variety as well that are a newer variety, but still looked for quite a bit these days. And then blue potatoes, which may be more of a gourmet potato, we will have available as well. And seed potatoes, people are typically looking to get those planted by St. Patrick's Day. That's a good goal with our weather in the spring, as long as things are warming up and cooperating in that regard. So from like now until St. Patrick's Day, and then hopefully right around there, everyone's trying to get their seed potatoes and get them ready and planted here for early spring crops. Onion sets have arrived at the store. We have red, yellow, and white varieties of onion sets. Those are the little bulbs that people say are a Spanish type onion. They're smaller and less sweet than the onion plants. Onion plants are your green bundles that will come later in the spring. So right now you start with your onion sets. And then we also got in a Cipollini onion yesterday that we'll have out this week, hopefully. And that's a gourmet onion set that you grow that's used for caramelized onions. And then shallots also showed up here recently that we have set up for sale. And then garlic, we have a fresh round of garlic in the store too, if people like to plant a spring crop of garlic.
When do you need to have those in the ground?
Here, typically March, April timeframe, people are looking for those in the store, and then they're trying to get them planted in the upcoming weeks.
Okay.
And then if we have cold snaps of weather, that may play into it as well. K-State Research and Extension has some very helpful handouts on seed potatoes, onions, garlic, that will give you more guidelines for planting. As far as early spring, we also have vegetable, flower, and herb seed that we are setting up on seed racks in the store and reloading for the new year. We carry Botanical Interest, Renee's, Livingston. We brought in a new rack of Page herb seed, and then bulk seed. We've been doing more of that the last few years in different sizes, and we'll be reloading some things in that area as well. So right now you can see the Renee's, Livingston, Page herbs, and lots of bulk seed on the sales floor. Botanical Interest, we are working on getting the rest of that rack set up here, hopefully in the next week. March is our deadline for a lot of things as the store traffic typically picks up and the weather takes off, hopefully turning into spring.
All right, and we still have a lot more coming in, don't we?
Yes. So things that aren't in the store yet but do show up here in the upcoming weeks are typically bare root rhubarb. We carry the Canada Red variety, which is a very common variety that people like to find. Strawberries, bare root, those will be in at least 2 different varieties. French fingerling potatoes come in with that shipment. We'll have 1 variety of those. And asparagus roots, we get several varieties of those coming in too. Martha Washington, Jersey Hybrid, Jersey Night, and Purple Passion we should definitely have. And then there's 1 more variety that's new this year that we will try and see how that goes as well. So those are not in the store yet as far as rhubarb, strawberries, French fingerling potatoes, and asparagus, but they will be coming in the upcoming weeks here in March. They don't typically tell us when they're going to get here, so you can check in at the store and Watch Facebook and our emails that we send out weekly, and we'll update people through those methods as soon as they show up. So in the greenhouse, we don't have plants yet, but they will be coming soon. Pansies arrive early March, being the first cool season annual available, since it's one of the most cold tolerant for containers and bedding plants. So right now we're expecting those here in the next couple weeks. Our Pansy Palooza event is, I think, the second week of March. Check our event card, or it's on our website, and we'll have it posted on Facebook when that event comes up. But that's typically when we'll first get our first round of pansies in, so that they should be here in a couple weeks, hopefully. Additional cool season annuals will follow as they become available. So that's things like your snapdragons, ornamental kale, ranunculus, stock, alyssum, creeping jenny, to name a few plants. And then there'll be more as they become available as we continue to progress into the season. Cool crops for early spring vegetable starts typically show up mid to late March, and those are things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, lettuce, spinach, Brussels sprouts, kale, to name a few, and then there will always be more on top of that as we continue into the season. Late March, early April arrivals at the store are usually your onion plants, which are the little green bundles that people look for. They're usually a sweeter onion. They'll produce a bigger onion, and we carry those in quite a few varieties. A couple really popular ones are usually the candy onions, the red candy, and then there's a couple newer ones on the market that we'll have in the store this year too. Spring bulbs for summer flowers typically get here like mid to late March, early April, and those are things like cannas, gladiolus, elephant ear, calla lilies, Asiatic lilies that you get in a bulb form in the spring, and you plant them late spring, and then they produce flowers in the summertime. When you see things like tulips and daffodils and hyacinths blooming around the area, those are bulbs that were planted in the fall that you get to enjoy in the spring, but you can only buy those in the fall. So the cannas, gladiolus, elephant ear, calla lily, Asiatic lilies are the ones you'll be looking for here mid to late spring, and then planting those to enjoy through the summer. And then vegetable seed is always something that there's a lot of activity with in the spring months. If you go online, you can find the KSU Extension Vegetable Garden Calendar. It's a great resource for when to plant things. So it's also available in the Kansas Garden Guidebook, which we do sell in the store. For direct sow outside with cooler temperatures, in March is when you can start a handful of vegetable varieties with the cool season crops. So in March, you're looking for beets and cabbage and broccoli and endive and cauliflower, lettuce, the seed potatoes, radishes, onions, which are typically the onion seed or the onion sets that time, peas, which are definitely a cool season crop, spinach, and turnips. Those are the ones that you'll start in March. There is going to be a little bit of crossover as you go into April. In April, you're still going to be able to plant beets, cabbage, collards, chard, carrots, broccoli, endive, cauliflower, lettuce, potatoes, radishes, onions, onion sets, peas, spinach, and turnips. And those are all shown on that KSU vegetable garden calendar that we reference quite a bit as far as when to plant and when to expect harvest. And some of these that you start early spring, you can also plant later in the year and get a second crop in the fall. And then some of the plants like your tomatoes and your peppers that are definitely a warm season crop, you'll plant here a little bit later this spring. So right now we're just focusing on the early months of March and April. And then if you refer to that vegetable garden calendar, you'll be able to see when it's best to plant some of your warm season crops here later this spring. And we may come back and touch on those later. Or if you have questions, just call the store or Facebook. We have a messenger system. You can ask questions there too, and we get back to you as we can. So as far as like these plants and the varieties, we try to carry what we can in seed that's available. And then some of these are also good for starts and that you'll be able to find in the greenhouse when those plants start showing up a little bit later. And then the warm season crops, just check the seed packets for recommended start dates if you're starting them inside to transplant outside. A good example would be like tomatoes or peppers, where some people want to start those early to get a little plant growing, and then they have to harden them off, which is a little bit of a process before they actually plant them outside in warmer temperatures, which is typically May. Or some people will come into the store and just buy the plants, like for tomatoes and peppers when we have them, which those are definitely late April, early May, when you would grab those plants and then be looking to plant them outside.
Yeah, I definitely prefer to go with the just buying the tomato plants or pepper plants rather than trying to get them to grow from seed.
Yep, it's probably easier just to grab the plants that we sell in the greenhouse for tomatoes and peppers, and then just finding the right time to plant them outside. Our frost-free dates are mid-April is usually the first one, and mid-May is the last one, is our guidelines, but the weather's different every year, so you just have to watch the temperatures and make sure we're past the freezing spells for your warm crops like your tomatoes and peppers and beans and corn that you'll plant later in the spring for summer crops. So, as far as plants, for what's going to show up in the store, we get a big perennial shipment with smaller sizes and lots of variety that will typically arrive mid to late April. That's the only time of year that this shipment arrives where we get the quart sizes, and then there's a lot more varieties that you may not find other times of year. Once we sell out of those items, they're gone until the next year. So if you prefer those smaller quart sizes and the extra varieties, you'll definitely want to check mid to late April into May for what we carry with that shipment that comes in. For plant shipments, we've already had a few semis starting to show up, and those will continue through March into April as we're trying to get things stocked up out front of the store and on the property for the garden store sales and the landscaping jobs. Mid-spring, mid to late spring is probably when you're going to find the best selection, and then we do the best we can to restock through the year as things come available with their semi timing. So plant shipments like trees, fruit trees, the ornamental trees, your evergreens, the shrubs, the ornamental grasses, perennials, and bigger sizes like gallon sizes start coming in on semis through the spring to stock the property March through May. Then we'll restock again in September with things that sell well or people might be looking for fall interest. As far as when you can plant, planting starts with trees as soon as you can dig a hole in the ground. So if the ground's not frozen, people will start planting trees as soon as it's starting to warm up here steadily. And we've already been selling a few trees, so you can start that anytime here if the weather's cooperating. Shrubs follow as the weather's warming up. And then perennials, you're typically looking at like late April because you're trying to get past the freezing and avoid some dieback with perennials. So trees plant here as soon as the ground is not frozen. Shrubs, you're looking at late March, April. Perennials, probably mid to late April into May. And then remember the frost-free dates again for your annuals and your bedding plants. Your first one's mid-April and your last one's typically mid-May as far as guidelines to help you with when to plant your annuals outside if it's cool season versus warm season type plants. So we get cool season annuals in March, April, and then we continue to stock the greenhouse up as things become available. So then you're looking at like mid to late April when your warm season annuals might start showing up and filling in the greenhouse. And then in May, it's mostly warm season annuals. So if you're looking at doing your containers, you start with your spring containers as soon as we start getting pansies and a little more variety of cool season annuals in March. And then in late April, you might start thinking about transitioning them into your warm season annuals, or wait till May when you know you're past the freezing, and just kind of check the greenhouse for the best variety and when to pick up plants to help switch things out as we're going from spring to summer seasons. The sod, we have already been getting questions about sod. It's a pre-order basis at the store. So if you're wanting sod, you call in, ask for Philip or Mike in the store typically. Tell them how much sod you're wanting based on your square footage, which is your area, length times width. The sod rolls are 9 square foot rolls. It's fescue sod. And then they would take your order, you'd prepay, and then they'd call you when it's here. And then it's either a pickup or they can possibly arrange a delivery depending on what's going on with the project. Sod is typically not available till April because we want it to come out of dormancy. And it's fescue sod, which is a cool season grass. Fescue is our most common in this part of the state as far as grasses used in the lawn. So that's what we carry for sod through the store.
You can also special order zoysia sod, but that is a lot harder for us to source and get. So just be aware that when you give us a call, it might be a little while before we're actually able to get it.
So the next thing we were going to talk about were events that go on in the store. We try to do events through the whole year. So we've already got things that are going through January and February. And you can find our event list on the website under the garden store page. There's a separate page called events, and we put our event schedules on that page. And right now there's one for the first half of the year, which will go through May, June. And then we'll put out more events as we get closer to summer that will cover the June, July, August months. And then when we get closer to fall, we'll put out another list that'll get us through the rest of the year. That's like September through December. So you can check there periodically. We always post them on Facebook. We have signs around the store. Our weekly email blasts also have them in there to keep you updated on what's going on. So in March, we do Pansy Palooza March 6th through 11th. That's a big pansy sale that week to celebrate getting in our first plants in the greenhouse. And those are the plants that you usually start with filling containers and your budding plants outside, as they are the most cold tolerant annual. Saturday, March 18th is a vegetable garden discussion at 10 o'clock in the store with a K-State Professor Emeritus Chuck Marr. He's very well known and does a great job talking about vegetable gardens with how to prepare and what to plant, and then people love to ask questions during that discussion. Friday and Saturday, March 24th and 25th, will be the garden store's spring open house weekend. So we do our best to try to get things ready by that deadline with things people typically look for in the spring that we have available at that time. And then there's always more stuff coming after that weekend, but that helps us kick off the spring season. Friday and Saturday, April 7th and 8th, are what we call an Easter weekend flower sale. So just check closer to that date with what we'll have going on in the store. Friday and Saturday, April 14th and 15th, will be a geranium sale that supports Dorothy Westervelt and breast cancer research. This is a sale they do each year to highlight Dorothy and breast cancer awareness for the Westervelt family, whom are the owners of Blueville Nursery. Saturday, April 22nd, we'll have Milford Nature Center do a presentation at the store at 10 o'clock. The subject of that presentation has not been decided yet, so closer to April 22nd, we'll be able to tell the public what they're presenting on. April 24th and through the 29th, that whole week, will be an Arbor Day tree sale. Arbor Day falls on Friday, April 28th, so we like to celebrate that week with a focus on trees. So check with us closer to that week if you have questions about what the tree sale will cover. Saturday, April 29th, it's going to be a Run for the Roses event with K-State Gardens. It's from 9 to 11:30 that day at the K-State Gardens. And look for Blueville at it. We did participate last year, and we're a sponsor again this year. And if you have questions about that actual event, contact the KSU Gardens, as they are the ones hosting the event. Additional sale info gets announced each week through Facebook, weekly emails, or you can call or stop by the store for more info. Our monthly newsletter gets posted on the company website, and it gets sent out through email. On the Blueville website, under the garden store area, you'll find a page with newsletters, and then we post them there so you can look back on past ones, or you can check there for the upcoming ones.
All right, that sounds like a lot of fun things going on. We'll take a break, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with part 2 of Spring at the Garden Store. Thank you, Katie, for joining us today. If you guys have any questions for me or for Katie, specifically for Katie about products or events at the garden store, feel free to email her at kriniker@bluevillenursery.com or email me at podcast@bluevillenursery.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks, and we'll see you later.